You are watching the SCOM Professors, a conversation about teaching and learning during the pandemic, right here on SCOMUp TV.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. David Marshall and I'm the Professor and Chair of Strategic Communication in the newly ACEJ-MC accredited School of Global Journalism and Communication, so we're very happy about that. And our department is the Department of Strategic Communication, affectionately known as SCOM. And today we're just going to have just a brief chat with all of our faculty who've been on the front lines during the pandemic, trying to guide students through, trying to guide ourselves through, trying to make best out of all of this to make sure that primarily that students are being taken care of, but also that we're taking care of, or we've taken care of the teaching and learning pieces, which are so valuable, and to do our best to make sure that students in our department and the students that we taught were not subject to some sort of slide of loss of knowledge, so that they still would be prepared to take their rightful places in classes in the fall. So we'll go around and each person will take a moment to introduce themselves. So this is always weird on Zoom. You never know what's right or left, but to my left, that's Dr. Moon. So Dr. Moon, you'll take it away, Dr. Smith, Dr. Dorsey-Elson, and then Professor Duckett. So introductions.
Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Moon. How are you? I hope you and your loved ones are very well during this challenging time. During this semester, I taught SCOM 200, Introduction to Public Strategic Communication, SCOM 3 to 5, Strategic Communication Campaigns, SCOM 498, Special Topics in Health Communication, and COM 314, Global Communication. So lovely, stable student. But I can CAN remember all student my student name, and the overall, although we started some online remote learning, but the semester went very well. So I really appreciate your great participation, hard work during this challenging time. Thank you.
All right, that's the introduction. Wow, we haven't even got to the questions yet. All right, Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Janice D. Smith, and I taught this past semester. I taught the practicum course. I taught SCOM in government and also media literacy, COM 203. I also coordinated work for our strategy shop, which is our performance center.
All right, Dr. Smith, and she's being a little modest. She's Dr. Smith APR, recently earning that. So again, congratulations. And Dr. Dorsey-Elson.
Thank you. Now, I had a great joke. I thought I would try to take it to moon levels, but maybe not, maybe not. However, I'm happy to be here. I'm Dr. Dorsey-Elson, and I have a dual role in our school. So part of my responsibilities are to coach faculty on teaching and learning, activities and things they can do in their classes, and do professional development that way. But I also am a faculty member, a proud one in this department, and I teach two courses, one that's specific to us, SCOM 414, Strategic Communication for Conflict Management, one of my favorites. And then I also taught a school-wide course and a gen ed across our campus, COM 203, Media Literacy for a Diverse World. Also, really love that course.
Okay, awesome. And then Dr. Dorsey-Elson, of course, since your roles intertwine or intertwine, I guess that's the right word. If you feel to even speak to your role as Director of Instruction for our school, please feel free to add, some comments relative to the questions as well. So that'd be very helpful. And Professor Duckett.
Hi everyone, Professor Jana Duckett here, Assistant Professor in the Department of Strategic Communication. I'm the newest person on the team, so I have the privilege to have worked with all the faculty and just enjoyed my time with the students this semester and kind of moving ahead in this post-pandemic new environment. This semester, I taught social media, strategic communication and social media, digital media, and media literacy. And so, yeah, and I also have the privilege of advising the Morgan State University chapter of the Public Relations Student Society of America. So.
Great. And they did a great job even during the pandemic remaining active. So congratulations on that. And in addition to being the chair, I also teach 2 classes, and I taught a writing class, SCOM 220, and I also teach the capstone course. So this is the last course that students in our majors take before exiting and graduating. And so congratulations to the 12 students, not all of whom were in capstone this semester, who made it out in May. And we just had a virtual recognition ceremony, which was just really lovely, celebrating all of the Morgan State University grads. So congratulations to everyone. Okay, so these questions are just sort of open, so we don't have to go round robin, left to right or right to, just jump in as you feel comfortable. So I guess the big question is, let's just start off with, I know we're faculty members, but we're also human people with real families and life situations and those types of things. So during the pandemic, we're at this point now, remote teaching since March the 23rd. How is everybody doing? How are you? How did you make it, or how are you making it? What are your tips for self-care? What did you do to keep yourself sane, juggling home and school and life, which generally tend to be in 3 different spaces, but they all converge to one space? How'd you do it? Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, awesome.
So one of the things that I focused on early on was trying to maintain some physical activity and practicing some yoga and some meditation. That really helped, because I think at the onset, we were so busy preparing for remote instruction during the pandemic, we forgot, like, we were also impacted by it too. It was impacting our families and our homes and our communities. So just trying to maintain that balance and stepping back to incorporate physical activity into my day. And then I felt like that helped to make me present and bring more engagement to the online instruction piece. Even though I was away from my students, I couldn't touch them, I couldn't see them, they weren't my physical presence, it actually helped with that presence level. So
all right, that's great. That's great. Anyone else want to tackle this question?
Yes, I'll follow Professor Duckett. I totally agree. We were in such a whirlwind in that quick transition that there was a sort of mindlessness about, oh, we're people too, that in some ways was necessary to get through the insanely big amount of work in such a small. But I began to feel the effects, and so I continue walking. I have taken up walking. I mean, and not just like a little jog. Like, I'm talking 5-mile walks. Just with my husband, they've been pretty regular, and that's been really a wonderful stress relief. In addition, those of you who know me out there, and I know all my colleagues here, I mean, I am a regular exerciser, and I am constantly like, I'm on my way to work out, I just worked out, and Dr. Marshall's always teasing me like, good luck with that.
Good luck with that, yes. I'll watch you from the sidelines for sure.
And to be banned from my gym, Planet Fitness member, there's a plug, you put a little logo up, Dr. Marshall, and post-production.
Okay,
but,
all right.
Anyway, but they've been really wonderful. They have literally opened up their website to these wonderful workouts, and I have found 1 or 2, so that has been instrumental. And so between that, and then the third thing I've done for self-care, which has turned into other care, is that I used to say that I would cook to only because I had to eat, but now I've really gotten into cooking for pleasure and relaxation.
Oh.
It's a meditative practice that I've discovered. The chopping, the seasoning, the studying the recipes, and the execution. It's such a payoff at the end that in a time where we can't control a lot, if I can control a meal, that actually has been quite cathartic. So those have been my strategies.
My strategy has been to put structure in my day. I'm I have always been a morning person. And so I just didn't want to get in the habit of taking it slow, getting out of bed, getting ready. So I put structure in my day. I try to get outside at least once a day. My workday starts at 9 o'clock. And I think that we were all, we all feel, I could relate to the students feeling overwhelmed, and I would talk to them about that, try to share empathy, and I would give them examples from my own life, because sometimes students would say that they wanted to talk about assignment, but what they really wanted to talk was just to talk.
That's right.
So I would share with them that I had concerns and fears too. I had to take my daughter to the emergency room during the pandemic when she got sick, and I could not stay with her. So I could understand where they were coming from, and we could share that. And it was very important to understand that they did want to talk. It was not they were talking about anybody they just wanted to have somebody to talk to. And I think that helped me as well.
That's great. Dr. Moon, what did you do? Did you find any tricks or routines to sort of keep your mind focused?
Shamefully, nothing changed dramatically because I don't like exercise, physical exercise. I hate exercise. I just stay home. My wife called me big cat, like some stay at home like this, just reading a book and sleep and eating, just routine life. But thankfully, I hosted some weekly meeting from Monday to Thursday, so I can keep my routine life. So that's all. Some shamefully nothing changed. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if it's a good idea for us to maybe be bashing, exercise. Although I've gotten better, Dr. Dorsey Elson. I actually did take a walk, not as long as yours. I'm embarrassed to say how long my walks were, so I'm not even going to say that. But like you, I did rediscover cooking. And so I've been trying out various recipes and seeing how they work. We talk about core success. My cooking success rate was not in the high 90s at all. So I have, but it has been therapeutic. Just the routine of doing it and creating something in the chaos. So I think those are all really great things. All right, our next question is really now moving into the heart and soul of the teaching pieces. Grades are in. They were due this morning. So congratulations to everybody for getting all the grades in. And thank you again. We know that's really not been an easy task. So how has it been? How did it go? We're seeing varying comments over the internet that, the pandemic was tough, but people are really questioning whether or not this was really the toughest semester ever, saying that they've had tougher semesters. So just in general, how did it go? Grades are in. How did your students do overall? Who'd like to lead off?
I can close a silence gap pretty quickly.
Oh, of course, yes. And we're laughing in love. Really, we're laughing in love for sure.
I know. No, we are really, the four of us are bonding on this article in a wonderful way. I just love it. So anyway, and the article will show it. But I understand the idea of characterizing this as the toughest semester ever. That's also a little cultural to sort of give something a top or bottom placement. But it certainly has been tough for some very unique reasons. And toughness can be experienced in any semester. The reasons for the toughness of the semester are unmatched, unprecedented, and nobody can argue. Unless you're going to point to me another time where we've been put into quarantine instantly, how can you compare? So I don't think it's about saying it's the toughest, but it was tough. And the tough parts of it were unique. The instant transition, the push into learning things that were new for a lot of us quickly, and then having to turn around and appear competent and be competent for our students quickly for them in turn, that was tough. And so I would not dispute that statement. In the meantime, it was also a successful semester, just like you might characterize other ones, and for unique reasons. So I may have strained away from your original question.
No,
but
no, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
I do feel passionate about talking about this context is in our lifetimes. Let's hope it never gets matched. And we do need to raise it up in the light as this was a first time thing. And we excelled, and so did our students. And putting grades aside, I mean, one last thing, I can fill silence thing, but one last thing. There was an expression, I'm serious, okay, now look, I'm not going to be the talking clown, but I will tell you. In the Planet Fitness regimen, I'm going back to exercise, right? You said, oh, I'm not walking 5 miles, and don't self-disparage. Every minute is mighty, is what and so in this semester, for our students, for us, every minute was mighty. And that's the truth, Ruth.
Yeah. Dr. Smith, what are you thinking? Was this really a tough semester, or are we just putting a different sort of frame on the semester, or was it just a uniquely different semester? Did you find it tough, or what are your thoughts?
I found it tough. Now, my students did well in certain instances, some better than others, but they were rather successful throughout this. But I think it was tough. It was tough on them, and it was tough on us, because it wasn't just about classes. It was just disruption of our lifestyle. And so the things that you usually could do to get away from the stress or take a break, you could not do. You had to find alternatives. So I think once the students realized that, and I said to them, tough times make tough people. So once they got over the idea that that they could rest on their laurels and they weren't going to get any new information. And I think a lot of them picked up the ball and ran with it. So, and I was pleased with some of the results. I actually, thanks to Dr. Dorsey Elson with the COM class, we got that free book. And I could see that with the download of the book, that really helped a lot. Some of the students who had been challenged because they did not have a textbook, I could see their grades going up. And I believed in giving them things in small bites. I know some, different things work for different classes, but I wanted to keep them engaged. And I noticed if the assignment was too far out, then they kind of lost some momentum. So I gave them bites that they could get each week through setting up the modules. And some of them got their assignments in early, which was really fun for me to see. So yeah, it was a tough semester. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. I mean, so this was really disruption.
All right, great. Next question. So of course we did a lot of surveying, and I think that may have contributed to our success in some ways, sort of listening to what students were saying. I remember when we started on March 23rd, we thought we had like the plan made of platinum, and found out very quickly that it was really more like cubic zirconia. It really wasn't the best, the best plan. And Dr. Dorsey Elson, I guess in addition to being a senior faculty member of the department, but in her role as the director of instruction for SGJC, kept reminding that it's going to have to be a give and take process. We won't know until maybe 2 weeks into this how things are. And sure enough, 2 weeks into it, when we did our surveys, we found out that there was a lot more work to do. But with that being said, we did at least 2 formal surveys, the end of the semester survey, did a lot of phone contacting for students. And even though during the process they said that we were doing okay, in some of the final survey feedback, there was still a sense that you gave too much work and it was still a lot of stuff. And so how are you feeling about this, Professor Duckett? Because I know we all bent over backwards to make this the less stress, a semester just full of no stress. and then we're still finding students that say you still did too much. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I feel like this semester, and even that statement is indicative that this was a social design experiment in my mind. And social design really focuses on how the humans involved in the process are reacting and responding to what they're giving them. So in this case, the assignments, that was something that and I'm sure all of you all, we had to kind of adjust in real time and adjust how we set up our modules. The first few weeks after spring break, there were a lot of discussion questions, there were readings, there were quizzes to test what you read, and over time, based on their feedback and that rapid fire brainstorming, we made adjustments. So I think for those students, perhaps the adjustments weren't made as quickly as they would have liked, or there weren't as many adjustments as they would have liked, but I think it was a social design experiment, and also a way for us as faculty and students to kind of co-create what the semester should look like and be for everyone. So I would say to those students that we did our best to hear you. We listened, we reacted, and responded in the ways that we felt would also help you have a meaningful learning experience. So that would be my response.
Got it. So a certain person on this Zoom who will remain nameless, Dr. Moon, actually, his assignment log, there were a lot of assignments, and I'm not so sure that it's longer or shorter before the pandemic or after the pandemic. So, Dr. Moon, you felt as an instructor it was very important to keep a lot of assignments going and he teaches our intro class. So these are our sort of, they hate the term, but our baby students, our entering students. Why did you feel the need to continue? Because you could have just truncated all of your work to one or two things. Why did you feel the need to keep them engaged, and how are you feeling about that, and what was the response, do you think?
So, first of all, we met regularly, weekly meeting, and I heard lots of complaint about some upcoming assignment because they were struggling to access Wi-Fi or internet. So I cut a lot of assignment to reduce their burden of some study. So my strategy is we should listen their some voice, because they try to explain their situation very clearly. So it's an interesting point. So another point is some students, they want to submit another assignment, for example. So I cannot access internet, so can I send another assignment to your email like this? So we should need some skills to adjustment for each student. So I did it. So I think they really appreciate my decision. So I think I was able to handle the class without any problem.
You know, and I think that's a really interesting point. It may not necessarily have been the sheer number of assignments, but being flexible in terms of how the assessments, how to do the assessments, or how to get the feedback from the students. And in my case, it was one student who literally, for most of the semester, I literally would ask them a question over the phone, and then they would answer the question to me, because they had intermittent internet. They did not have a computer, but all they had was some semi-regular access to a cell phone that they were saying that Canvas didn't work well on. So literally that piece there. So I guess to your point, it may not have been the sheer number of assignments. It might have been just maybe the flexibility or the perceived flexibility that students thought that we might have had relative.
You're right. Some students send their assignments through text message. It's really interesting. So no problem. I'll handle it. No worries.
Okay, by show of hands, before March 23rd, how many of us would have accepted an assignment through text message? No hands. And it certainly wouldn't have been me, because if the margins weren't right and things weren't spelled perfectly, and if it weren't in AP style or APA style, depending upon the writing, it was going right back. So I just think this is very interesting. And I think that's gonna be my last question in terms of how has this experience changed you as a teaching professional? And I think something that's happened to all of us, and I don't think it's bad. I think there's some good things that have come out of this. But moving forward, technology and innovation, what did you do that was different? And I guess I'm asking this question in the framework. It doesn't have to be something brand new that you just discovered in the universe, but maybe something you were using in a different sort of way that also celebrates innovation. Dr. Smith, Dr. Dorcels, you want to lead us off on this one?
Innovations, the question of innovations.
Innovation.
Let's see, I mean, for me, the global view around innovations is that was the central conversation across the school. So I was able to sit in and all the different department meetings and was very, very, very interested in hearing how faculty in our school were turning something they could do very easily in a classroom that was equipped and had things ready, and students would walk into an environment ready for them, and help those same students complete those same projects to a certain degree, if not actually, from a home environment. And that required innovation. And I was very impressed. Students and faculty were collaborating in new ways based on my observation. That includes in this department. And I'm very proud of how people, all of you squares on my screen. I mean, week after week, the prime question was always, how can we get this done? And there were always ideas. So that translated into innovations like new apps that I hadn't discovered, new websites that I had to check out, new ways of getting information out and receiving information, including assignments. And by the way, I was having lots of text conversations, no assignments, but check-ins. In fact, that was the best strategy I found to get a response from students, which then means I'll carry it forward. I mean, I'll close my comments in response to that. Your question with this, I mean, the previous question, one of you, I can't recall now, did say, that was you, Dr. Marshall. You said, you know, we thought we had this flexibility or perceived flexibility.
Yep.
We kind of were introduced to what we thought was our flexibility. And we were in this context of global pandemic and the quarantine, we were forced to really react. And some of us are going to carry that forward. I think what our flexibility looks like, not leniency, but flexibility in how we teach, how we perceive students, and now know students learn. It's a new ball game. And I think it's going to benefit all of us. We're more nimble, agile, I think, and we're writing about all this. So this is where I am with the idea of innovations.
Dr. Smith, innovation, and what did you try that worked?
Well, you know, I was just beginning to learn Canvas, and now I think I'm pretty darn good with Canvas. And I felt, you know, really good when I could tell the students how to do something in Canvas, because they're supposed to be so techy, and I could give them some advice. But, you know, just looking at the whole Canvas and all of the components of it, and learning more each day in terms of how it can help us facilitate learning and be more innovative. You know, I take my little greeting to students and video greeting. And so using that, looking at different, Dr. Dorcelson mentioned webinars and engaging with other folks and trying to find out what some of the best practices are, and to break through the clutter, because there's so much out there, and it depends on the class you're teaching and what works for those particular students. And so, you know, some of the things that I looked at in terms of the branding in a crisis, and also webinars on different kinds of influencers and that kind of thing, that I took some of that, brought some of that to the students. And so I was pleased about that. And I still want to explore that because I want to continue to look at best practices in our particular discipline and what will work better next time if we go to a hybrid model, or, even because I don't think things are, no matter what, things are not going to be the same. They're not going to be what they were in the fall as compared to what they were last fall. So learning, just open to learning, and I encourage them to be open to learning. And they taught the students in the practicums, like, yeah, let's investigate what it would be to have a virtual agency. And I was really, because that gave the whole idea was from their standpoint. And I thought that was really pretty cool for, I'll use that 60s, 70s term, cool. I guess it's popping with them, but.
What do you know about that language? Oh, wow.
He taught me some things too.
Dr. Smith, the word is lit. It would be lit.
Oh, lit. Is that the new word?
Well, lit, but popping too. They tell me popping is they have when it's popping, it's going on. So I don't know.
Wow. Professor Duckett, tricks, new innovations, what'd you find? What'd you use? What worked?
So this is an old tool, but Kahoot, during the live sessions, Kahoot was a really engaging way to give them questions and allow them to kind of interact and build some healthy competition between students during our live sessions. And then also just playing around with the idea with the virtual guest speakers. And kind of like Dr. Smith was saying, figuring out how to kind of take this into the next semester, even when we do arrive back on campus eventually, how to use these tools continually together for in-person and online experiences. But the online guest speaker with Casey Calvert, the Baltimore Ravens social media coordinator, was great. She was willing to speak to the class. And then also a representative from Salesforce was able to do a live demonstration using Radian 6 tools and just walking them through different steps. And so that has permanence to it. I can take that and repurpose those videos, create a library for classes to come. We can save that content, and it's just kind of opened and broadened my mind of how I can, even when we do arrive back on campus, how I can kind of merge the two.
Awesome, awesome. Almost done here, just a couple more questions, and this is probably the heaviest question. Of course, as you know, reading between the Chronicle and just all over social media, there have been a number of lawsuits by students at very interesting and prestigious institutions about the quality of learning or learning. And I guess some critics, while they will say we did the best we could under the circumstances, it was a global pandemic, we had to pivot and do a hard pivot. I guess the question is that some are asking, what happened, at least for us, between March 23rd and yesterday when grades were in, was that really teaching? I mean, we've even parsed this down to the difference between online learning versus remote learning, but even in the context of remote learning, what do you say to critics to say that we were just holding a place, like the airplane circles, but it really wasn't real teaching? What's your feeling about that, and how would you react or respond to that criticism or line of thought, I guess?
So I think remote teaching is another way of teaching too, I think. So I think the remote teaching has taught me very much. I think that this experience will benefit students when they get to jobs or grad school, because it teaches them the importance of time management and self-paced learning skills. So I have no idea why many people don't like some online learning or remote some teaching. So That's from my opinion.
Yeah, so I think you bring up a good point that even for people who are saying that maybe they don't agree with the quality of learning, I think maybe what you're saying, Dr. Moore, what I'm hearing you say, which I think is really interesting, the process of what was going on is also learning, and not just particularly what was in a book. So that's an interesting perspective. Anyone else about the critics of what happened over these last 2 months?
Sure. Yes, when you pitch that question, it ushers in a philosophical question out in all education spheres, which is, what is teaching and what is learning? I mean, this is the question. They're inextricably linked. And so the critique and the lawsuits, certainly don't want to comment on anything specific to those, but it brings about the question of how do we know when people have learned, and how do people know when they've taught? And obviously, you can see why they're inextricably linked. And so I would rewrite the question. It would be like, how do we know the students learned? And the evidence is in the final projects, the assessment scores, the evidence is in the emails and comments. I haven't even mentioned grades yet, final grades. I mean, one might argue this is anecdotal evidence, but I bet if we were to really study the results, which are what I just listed, that learning did take place. And if learning took place, then teaching did as well.
Professor Duckett, what are your thoughts? The whole construct of teaching and learning, and I think moving away from whether or not it was remote or online, it was this sense of disheveled sort of dishevelment where people were all over the place, dealing with other circumstances, really not focused on the learning. So how would you rate, and maybe not specifically for the department, but just in this globally, how would you say the quality of learning was, or could be, or did we do okay, or what do you think?
I can speak to the experiences that I've had and what I've seen with my students. So going into teaching after March 23rd, after the pandemic and remote instruction, I really didn't make a tremendous amount of changes to my syllabus. So the final project stayed the same. We included more online discussion assignments and prompts for that. And so I was able, going into post-pandemic, I was able to kind of keep my teams together. They knew what to expect. It wasn't a completely new class for them, and the projects were ones that they were familiar with. And so the root of the word education is to draw out. And so what I saw that my students were kind of like Dr. Moon said, they were figuring out time management. They were working together in teams and figuring out how to solve problems with one another. They were reading the material. I was kind of guiding them through that process. And so what I saw students turn into were independent learners. We were kind of teaching them kind of how to learn and how to structure themselves with the material that we were providing. And then those check-ins during the week were me kind of asking questions, asking how they were thinking, meeting with the groups individually to ask them how they were thinking about the campaigns they were putting together. Why this target audience instead of this one? And so we were having a dialogue. And so for me, I would tell the critics that we, in this season, were able to really empower them to become these independent learners that were organizing themselves and still meeting deadlines and finishing up the semester in an excellent way, one that we celebrated. So,
all right, Dr. Smith, anything to add?
Well, I support what Professor Duckett said. When we talk about teaching and learning, we're talking about an interactive process. So did they learn anything? And it's not teaching and learning, not just a science, but also an art. And I think, did you learn anything from through this semester? And I think they did. They learned how to work in a crisis, in a pandemic. And sometimes you know, if you talk about an in-phase class, you can still have criticisms about a professor. To protect the guilty, I've had classes in graduate school, and I'm not going to say which one, but you know, you never got a graded paper back, or that kind of thing. So did I learn something? I did learn something. So I think, you know, that that sometimes people are really talking about the culture of on-campus learning, the college, the quote college experience, not so much the actual learning that is going on.
You know,
And you all are convinced that even without computers for some students, or internet for other students, and students who could not spend, you know, what we recommend 10 to 15 hours a week per course, but the process still embraced that there was learning that was taking place. So that's what I'm hearing from everybody. Yes? Or?
yes, I think you're also hearing different types of learning. The question does elicit a broad focus on the types of things the students could learn. But we are driven by learning outcomes. Those outcomes did not change or alter, meaning the courses are driven. They did not alter when we made the transition. And there we have products that suggest that those learning outcomes were met. Not perfectly, but again, name me the semester where it's perfect. Name me that. And even in this environment, this context, learning occurred, and there is evidence.
All right, that's great. I wanted to take a minute. We had some students who filled out a end of the semester survey, and I'm gonna go through all of it, but just wanted to get to one of the results, or one of the questions which did ask, and it's coming up here. All right, with respect to March 23rd to the present, the COVID-19 teaching period, generally speaking, I'm proud of the work that I accomplished in my SCOM classes, and please provide an explanation. So 3% saying that they disagreed. And again, some of the comments I'm looking through, let's see. Basically, I could have produced better work, but these were tough times. So that there are a couple of comments like this. I learned about myself during this time that discipline was necessary when it came to focusing not only my schoolwork, but my mental health, to come to the fact that I needed a daily routine that was going to give me a pathway to success. A majority of my work, it was late, which is sometimes rushed because I mentally checked out of school in April and struggled to get the work done. It's difficult to focus on working hard when there's so many other things going on in the world. So that just gives us a sense of sort of the student sentiment and the feedback there. Well, this has been great. One final question, and any of these complex questions you answer, questions or complex answers to the questions that I'm asking. Let me try that again. Any questions are complex. Any part of the answer that you want to pull apart is fine. So the big question is, what's next? What have you learned about yourself as an individual, and how has this changed you as a teacher? In other words, what are some things that you have left behind pre-March 23rd that you know you're probably not going to return to again? And what's the new you that's going into the fall? How does this help your own personal and professional development? And who'd like to start? And nobody changed, of course, I'm sure. Yeah. How have you changed, and what's going to be different? What type of individual is going to be, if we can get on campus, walking into a classroom in fall, and how is that different from the individual that walked in fall of 2019?
I'm leaving room.
You don't have to leave room. The floor is yours. Yeah, your floor is yours. So.
Well, I'm actually quite excited about who I'm evolving into. And so the what's next for me is I roll in about a week and 10 days or so into a summer session 1 course, also still online at our university. And I'm actually super excited, as our students say, super this, super that, because now I have a lot of experience in these 8 weeks past with some new apps and some more courage to try some additional ones. And these are apps that I'm learning about and are easy, and I'm now feeling really confident to keep trying. So that's next, my most immediate next. In addition, doing some writing and reflecting on what worked and didn't work, which is really keeping me energized. And so my major learnings as a faculty member, as a teacher, have been around the integration of technology and into teaching and dispensing information and receipt. It's really fantastic. And my takeaway quote is that I kind of knew it before going in, but through seminars that I've been attending and through actual experience, I mean, like, video really is the new language to teach with. And this event here is evidence of that. I mean, we are now speaking in images. And yes, language and the spoken word accompanies those images, but images are moving so much more to the forefront that this is a major learning. An aha, maybe I'm on the late train. I don't think so. It's like you know it, and then we've lived it. I mean, it's been incredible. So the new professor is my burning question is, how can I show it before I tell it? And that's like a mantra. How can I show it before I just tell it? And I think that that's going to improve that exchange of information with my students, whether we're remote, whether we're hybrid, whether we're high flex, whether we're in class and in face-to-face. I love that new me, and that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm at the age I am and the stage I am, I feel very energized. I'm very energized to apply some of who I've become moving forward.
Awesome. Dr. Moon, have you changed, or how have you changed, or how are you going to be different in the fall? What have you learned?
So, if possible, I would like to boost my video editing skills because, although Panapto, they provide some live tools of video editing, but it is not good, I think. So I really want to boost my video editing skill, and so I will submit several manuscripts for the next semester. So it is time to prepare for research or some self-time management skills. And another hobby is I really want to meet everybody next fall semester. Please open the university as soon as possible. Yeah, that's all, Dr. Marshall. So yeah.
All right. Dr. Smith, who's walking into the classroom in fall 2020, different from fall 2019?
I think that we are always changed by our experiences. And I am really glad that I took the growth mindset workshops. I incorporated that formally in one class and informally in other classes. And I think I'm just more open-minded. I tend to say, well, we don't have to do step by step as I've laid it out, as long as we get to the same result. But I'm feeling that more now. And so I want to work on some more technical things that I think are really apropos for our majors and best practice. And I'm really kind of excited about this flexibility and this open growth mindset thing.
And just for those who don't know what a growth mindset is, just a quick sentence, either you or Dr. Dorsey-Elson, what exactly is it?
It is when you are open to learning new things and you don't put yourself in a box saying, like, oh, at my stage, I can't learn new technology. I'm learning new technology. I don't like all of it. I'm not sure if all of it, some of it has some kinks in itself to work out, but it's being open to say that I haven't learned that yet.
Great, great. Professor Duckett, what's the new you? How has this experience changed you, and how are you going to emerge from this as a better teacher? Not to say you weren't a good one before. We know you're really doing great, but what's next? What's the enhancement?
I think for me, it's the flexibility and the co-creating with students. I think Dr. Dorsey Elson challenged us to survey our students during the live sessions and really bring them in the process of optimizing and improving what we're doing. And so that's something that I want to kind of take in even to the fall semester, because no class is the same. Students are different. They have different environments, different challenges. And so just being not married to my syllabi at the start of the semester and just being willing to evolve and transform with them. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think for myself, it's definitely the flexibility. In fact, several of my students said that they really were not concerned about the global pandemic. They were concerned that I was coming unhinged because before you even asked the question, the answer was no. And someone said, I have not heard you say no in 2 months. And it took a global pandemic to do this. So
you have changed.
Yes. Dr. Dorsey Elson and I, my office is in room 209A in the School of Global Journalism and Communication. And we often have senior faculty talks about various things that are going on, and including a reputation for a harder stance. And I would always say to her, there are no hugs coming from 209A. But after this pandemic, I'm just going to stand in the hallway and just hug everybody. This has just been this has just been the most amazing thing. But honestly, I think again and it's taken, it's kind of interesting that it's taken this long in my career to get here. But for the first time, I think we generally try to separate who a student is and the classroom. And I think the point that I'm trying to say is that these things are not hard lines. They're integrated. You can't separate who a student is from the student who is in front of you learning. So all of it matters. Where they live, what they're going through, if they're parents, if they're not parents, what their upbringing might be, what may have happened to them in the neighborhood that day, what types of experiences that they have. And even from day to day, a great student on Monday may be a student who's sitting in the back on Thursday, just not saying anything. And so to some extent, it sort of broadened my understanding of teaching to the whole person and having an understanding that maybe at the end of the day, it is not the calculation in the Canvas grade book only, but there are a lot of other considerations that you need to make in order to make sure the students are moving along and meeting them where they are to get them where they need to be. And for different students, that finish line is different places. And I think that's probably been my biggest takeaway. So Dr. Boone, I'm with you there. I hope we're back in the fall and no pandemic, so I can stand at the top of the stairway and just hug everybody. So that's where I am. So
I want the first hug. I want the first hug.
All right, you got it. All right. Well, thanks again for this chat. I thought it was really important for us at the end of the semester, the last technical day of the semester, for those of us who are not 12-month faculty to come together and just pull together some thoughts. So I want to say thank you to all of you for your work, and I've learned a lot from each of you this semester in terms of getting through this together, and I'm really proud that we sort of work together as a group. And I'd also like to mention our administrative assistant, who's not in this conversation, Miss Angela Hayward, who's spent a great deal of time calling students and doing retention work. So thank you all for your work. So
yes,
Dr.
Put your clapping icon up for Miss Hayward.
Oh yeah, we'll for Miss Hayward, we'll definitely do that. So Again, thank you, Dr. Julie Moon, Dr. Janice Smith, APR, Dr. Laura Dorsey Elson, and Professor, soon to be Dr. Jana Duckett. We're crossing our fingers there. Thanks again. Thanks for your work, and thank everybody for watching. And have a good summer for all of the academics, and we'll see you back in the fall.
And thank you for your.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching the SCOM Professors, a conversation about teaching and learning during the pandemic.